This episode of Sewing Out Loud is brought to you by Copper Compression. If you've been doing extra sewing or housework, your hands might need some extra support. Visit coppercompression.com and use code SEWINGOUTLOUD to receive 30% off your first order.
Welcome to Sewing Out Loud, the official podcast of ZD Sewing Studio. Here are your hosts, ZD and Mallory.
Sewing Out Loud. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Mallory Donahue.
And I'm ZD Donahue.
And today we're going to talk about couching. And we don't mean when you sit on the couch for a long time because you're stuck at home all day.
And you think you're a potato.
Yes, it's not couch potatoing. This is couching. Sewing machine
This could be social couching.
Social couching. There you go.
Yes.
SEW. Okay, so this is social couching, which I think could have like a much, different meaning maybe. And I can't believe we haven't done an episode on this yet, but this is one of those times when
I used
we were
to do this so much.
But we were kind of like, oh, we were going to talk about this, and we realized we did it in 2017 or something like that.
You know what I'm thinking of right now as we talk about is that crazy quilt I have in my living room.
No, ZD used to be couching queen for sure.
Yeah. I don't know what and it's actually like on my couch, but
it's a couch crazy quilt on the couch.
I lay it over the back of my couch all the time.
No, it's a super. This is.
I have every single kind of trim, bead, cording, ribbon. I should have gone and gotten it, but it's downstairs. Maybe I can remember. But anyway,
we have a box here that says crochet and couching, and it's one of those big, like long flat tubs. Maybe it could have gone under like a bed or something.
Right.
And it's full of yarn, and
that's not the only thing I couch with.
No, no, and so it's a little this technique of embellishing. There's so many parts to it, so many parts that go together. So we were really trying to outline how best to explain it over a podcast, and we've decided to sort of define couching for you first, okay?
In the simplest of manners.
Yes, sort of in the most basic way. So when you couch, you are using your sewing machine and just a basic needle thread. We'll talk about different thread options for you, but, you are using your sewing machine and sewing thread in your needle and sewing thread in your bobbin, and then you are using that to apply normally a long length of ribbon, cording, trim, yarn, beads. Did I say sequins already? I can't remember.
I don't know. You may have. We talked about sequins so much. I don't know.
Right, but most of the time, it's like something that has come off a roll.
So when we say beads, it's like a string of beads.
A string of
or
beads.
Beads you've strung or something like that. So it is a string or a length of something. And like I said, I'm afraid to go here because you sort of drive it on.
Yeah.
Right. You're paving with it.
You're laying track.
Yes.
All right. So then, what were we going to talk about next? What's our next?
Well,
you want to talk about the materials? Is that what we were going to talk about? We just did. We just
defined
talked about
it, and we said what we were going to put on, and Mallory, I'll reiterate, your sewing machine is basically just threaded like you were going to sew.
Right.
And now you may make choices of different threads later because your thread is going to be laying over and on top of whatever you're paving.
That's right.
Whatever you're laying down.
If you are laying down a string of beads and you somehow wanted it to look like these had been put on by hand, or you were trying to outline something and you
just add a color. Maybe the beads are clear or white or something, and you needed something more pinky, or you needed some color in there.
Okay, so you can choose to have your thread contrast with whatever you're laying down, blend in to whatever you're laying down, either one of those. And then ZD, you like to use that monopoly thread,
which is spelt like monopoly.
Yes.
So I call it monopoly thread, monopoly.
It is a clear polyester thread.
What was the one that we used to use before that one came out? It was it was more stretchy.
Yeah, it was like a nylon.
It was nylon. That's exactly what it was. Monopoly I like better.
Right.
I feel like it's not as finicky on people's machines.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as stretchy.
Yes.
People don't seem to have it. And I only use it in my needle.
Right.
Okay, I use regular thread in my bobbin.
Okay.
Okay.
So the thread that you choose for your sewing machine, it can be construction thread. Okay.
Mhm.
It can be a machine embroidery thread.
Mhm.
This all depends on,
Top
what
stitch thread.
it could be top stitch thread.
Mhm.
That would give you a more bold look.
2 embroidery threads gives you 2 colors or whatever.
Right.
I mean, this
Or a
this
thicker
is
look.
this
Yeah.
is endless, guys.
Oh, yeah.
This is
Possibilities
endless.
are endless.
It can be a metallic thread.
Yeah.
This is endless. And if you could, we have to take a bunch of pictures of that quilt.
Yeah, there
because
are a
there's
lot-
like every sample in the
No,
world.
you
on
could
it.
have so many options. And so when if you buy that string of beads, you could find them at the craft store and
Right.
everything. If they are black or something, you could use black thread, or you could use like a gold thread,
Right.
and you could get a very different look either way. But our point is that, like, we're not saying that you're sewing with sequin thread coming through your needle or something like that. We
So
didn't
the
want
thing that
anybody to
you're
get the wrong
laying
idea.
down
Yeah.
is being laid down and then sewn on.
Yes.
So it's being applied to the top.
And then the stitches, how to set up your machine for stitching over the trim, the ribbon, the beads, the sequins, whatever. That is oftentimes a zigzag stitch. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And you are, of course, like ZD tells you all the time, you're going to test
Right.
to make sure that this stitch looks good over your thing. Now, you are going to, just so you know, visualize this. If you're sewing over something rather thick, picture like a rather large cord or something like that,
Right.
there's going to be more top thread getting laid down than bobbin thread
Right.
because there's nothing thick on the bottom. And we don't seem to have to adjust our tensions when doing this.
I don't think I've ever adjusted a tension. Ever.
Yeah.
And that's sewing on many sewing machines over, oh my God, I'm so old.
You're so
Like
old.
over 50 years. Yeah, I remember when I started this, I didn't know there was a difference. Like, to me, thread was thread.
Right.
And I remember sewing over, like, it was like a tatting cord that I found that was my aunt's. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know even where the idea, like, came from. I think maybe I saw it on something.
Right.
Like, I'm thinking of a collar on a dress I saw one time. And I was like, my machine will make that zigzag.
Yeah.
And again, this was very simple. It was like a cord and, like a white cord, and it was zigzagged over with red thread or something
Right.
like that,
Fun.
And I did it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I did it. And then I was like, well, I could use 2 cords, and then, and I will tell you, I did not have the help of all of these feet
Oh, man.
that we have now.
So we're not quite there yet, but when we get there.
Right.
There-
One thing I did have, and this is funny, guys, my sewing machine had all these cams in it. It was very sophisticated for the time. This was like in the 60s. And I was embellishing things with sewing thread.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they had like
decorative
anything.
thread.
Well, they did, but it was like silk.
uh-huh. Right.
I don't know that there were rayon or polyester embroidery threads for my machine.
So let's talk a little bit about the zigzag. When you choose a zigzag on your sewing machine, it's going to, come up as the default length and width, or you're going to look in your owner's manual and it's going to tell you the default length and width.
Right.
And most of the time when you couch, you're going to change these settings.
Right.
It's generally going to be longer than the recommended length. Okay. I can't remember what the recommended length is on like the default, length on the Baby Lock right now.
On the zigzag?
Yeah.
I think it's like 1 or 1.5. It's very short.
Well, and it seems short, but it's because, so if it's 1.5, there's really 3 millimeters between the 2 stitches on the right side and the 2 stitches on the left,
Right.
But you may even go up to like a 3.
Oh, easy.
Okay,
I
easily.
think most of the time I have gone up.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you go up.
Now, if I'm doing a lot of curly cues,
Mm-hmm.
I may be down for. I may not go because I'm trying to make that curve.
Get that detailed
Right,
work in there.
right.
So you a lot of times you're lengthening it, and the longer stitch length also helps you not to build up thread over a possibly bulky piece of cording or
Right.
sequins or something. Like, it just benefits you in that way. And then your width,
And some of it too is going to be the look you want.
right, the look.
So
you want,
am I got red thread over something white and I want a lot of red to show?
yeah.
Or do I just want it to look spaced out? So it's a look and a technique and, considering your bulk and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
all that comes
again,
together.
test, test, test.
And then your width is going to be dependent on what you're laying down too.
Absolutely.
So most of the time, once again, you do whatever you want, but
Right.
most of the time you're just gonna kind of want to go right outside those outer bounds
Right.
of the beads, the sequins, the
So
ribbon.
you're laying down a stitch to the left, and then a stitch to the right, and then a stitch to the left.
So you'll test this a little bit, okay?
Mhm.
And you know why you also need to test this is because if you're putting beads under your foot,
Right.
you need to make sure that your needle is not going to hit.
Well, and that's another thing.
beads.
Especially if there's something like that, or even sequins sometimes, depending on how they're strung or how the trim is made, you want to hand walk through. Now, if I'm just going on a flat ribbon, I probably don't have to hand walk. I might go slow.
Well, yeah, you
But-
want to see what it
right.
looks like.
But, anything that might break my needle.
yes.
Right, or I think might break my needle. You're going to hand walk, and you're going to come up with these settings you want.
Yes. And so do be mindful of that. This is where I think you can get kind of a funny pulling look
Mm-hmm.
is if you go too wide. So if you go too wide over those beads and
Well, or too
it
wide
wants to-
over anything.
yeah, too wide over anything really that's, not
Well, and even like the ribbon or
Yeah.
the cording or whatever, you want it to be tight enough that it's not sliding around.
that's right.
So even if you're not sewing into the ribbon
Uh-huh.
or you want it to be snug enough that the ribbon's not sliding out or coming, or the cording or whatever you're using. Now I want to really couch.
I
This
know.
is
I'm
turning
like,
me
oh,
on.
are you getting excited? All right.
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right.
yeah, this is turning me on.
We didn't know
Like,
we'd get so
I-
excited.
I remember sitting down and just trying to think up combos and
I told you that
yeah,
I'm going to just do
yeah.
free motion couching for the next Self-Sewn Wardrobe
Right.
Live. I'm just going to do
Now-
it.
now you say free motion. Free motion?
Yeah.
There's a new word.
Free
Free
motion.
motion. Free motion.
Is this free mouching?
Free mouching. Anyway,
Free mouching couching.
somebody will come up with a word for us and let us know. So when Mallory says free motion,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about feet, and there are many feet. Mallory actually even has laid out, but you can do what I would call meandering, and you can do free motion.
You know what I've heard that called? Free flowing sewing.
Well, I always call it meandering.
But
But that's right too. That's okay.
I feel like it gives a little bit more of an idea of what's going on.
Well, I used to meander though.
Yeah, but you can meander at any speed. But like free flowing to me gives you the idea that So what ZD's talking about is with meandering or free flowing sewing.
Right.
You got your stitch.
You're saying sewing too. Yes.
Yes.
Your feed dogs are up.
Yeah, your feed dogs are up. You're sewing.
Right.
But-
But I might be sewing in a circle and a loop and a this. It's sort of like if I was free motion quilting, sort of like that. And it doesn't have to be a particular design. It's like whatever I'm feeling.
Yeah,
at the time.
whatever you want to do.
Or if I'm going around a design that's on the fabric
Yeah.
or something like that. But I do have my feed dogs up.
Mhm.
Okay. And, I'm going around those corners with the feed dogs up and I'm using that stitch. But there is also a true free motion.
Yes. So what? But you didn't kind of talk
What-
about your meandering. Okay.
What did
so
I miss?
I feel like when you couch and your zigzag is a little longer,
Mhm.
it lets you, since there's more space between those stitches, it lets your fabric move under your foot up more freely than when you're just doing like your normal 2.5 millimeter straight stitch.
Yeah, well, see, but also if I'm making a curve, I don't want the stitches too far apart either.
No, but
Yeah.
you're curving without lifting your presser foot
It's
is what
true.
you're doing.
Yes, I am.
Okay, you're
Yes, I am.
curving, you are moving your fabric, you're not
Right.
stopping every stitch to
Nope.
lift your presser foot. Okay, so that's what ZD's talking
Right.
about with like meandering and free flowing,
Right.
sewing like that. You've got things set up to where you're still using your feed dogs. You can't go backwards all of a sudden because they're dropped, but it allows
Well,
you to.
you can't go backwards.
You can if you
with
put
sewing.
the reverse in.
No, because you'll back up over your. No.
Well, right. No, you
That-
don't
no,
want to
you
do
ca-
that.
You can't. I mean, you don't because you'll bunch up your cording.
yes.
Yes.
So you can't do
Right.
that. Now, when you have your feed dogs dropped, though, I could do, and you have your free motion couching foot on, I can go kind of like backwards and back and
Yes,
forth if I
and
wanted
you're
to.
also using a straight stitch.
Yes, and
So
I'm using a
that
straight stitch.
then using the straight stitch allows you to sort of back up and over your stitching more. Now
Mhm.
with the meandering, you can cross over your stitching, like
Right.
make loops. With the free motion foot, also, you're almost always using a really soft cord.
Yes. So
So, you're not going to use your free motion foot with your feed dogs down to put on sequins, probably.
it's a little different. It's like a different animal,
Right,
you know,
right.
for sure. You can't do you have to be able to sew through your couching medium. Okay, you have to be able to sew through it.
Exactly. You are sewing right, almost dead center through it.
Right.
Is the objective.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna come back and talk about like one of the most important things, and we saved it for later because it is so in depth, and that is the different types of feet
Right.
that you can have for couching. Okay, so we'll take a quick break and be right back.
Let's take a moment to thank our latest sponsor, Copper Compression, for supporting the podcast.
Copper Compression offers a full range of copper-infused wellness products like braces, gloves, and sleeves that provide targeted relief and the support you need through your active recovery. They have the highest copper content on the market, guaranteed.
Copper-infused fabric is wondrous material. It has antimicrobial and anti-odor properties and boosts circulation. The unique combination of compression and copper gives you the strength to heal.
We know how important our hands are. I've been knitting and gardening more while staying at home, which is fun, but my hands were killing me. I started using their half-finger gloves while working on my latest project, and my hands have felt so much better.
Copper Compression was recently in the news. They donated their entire stock of 18,000 professionally manufactured masks to New York and New Jersey hospitals.
And of course, we have a special offer for our listeners. Go to coppercompression.com/sewingoutloud30. That's coppercompression.com/sewingoutloud30, or use the promo code SewingOutLoud, all one word, at checkout for a very generous 30% off on your first order. Thanks, Copper Compression. Sewing out loud. Okay, there are so many feet nowadays.
Feet are made for walking.
Yeah,
And
these
that's
feet.
the-
No,
No, they aren't.
These feet are made for couching. Right,
And that's
yes,
just what they
they'll
do.
All right, there we go.
Some of these days, these feet are gonna couch
right
over you.
Man, we started a little low there. All right.
I feel low today.
Okay.
I'm a little raspy.
All right. So, what feet can do for you in couching land? I felt like I had a good platitude for this. They can provide
Couching lands.
space
Mm-hmm. That's
and
good.
guidance
Okay.
for your couching medium. Okay?
Okay.
Space and guidance. So when we talk about ribbon, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's something that could almost be done with your normal
Right.
zigzag
So,
presser foot, right?
So right up front, and this is what I did because I didn't know there were feet like this when I started doing this
Right.
in my infanthood of sewing. um,
Sewing
my
infancy.
fetal gestation age of sewing. I just used my regular foot. I had a zigzag foot, so
Yeah,
there
you had a
was
zigzag
room
foot.
underneath.
Okay.
A flat foot's not good. It's nice to have, what is called your zigzag foot. If you turn it over, you know that there is room carved out.
Right.
It's not a flat foot, right?
Mhm.
There's a channel there
Yeah,
for
there's
build up to go through.
right, right.
Yes.
It could even be used for decorative stitching or satin stitching. So there's that with the ribbon. But then
Right.
you start to get into, anything three-dimensional,
Mhm.
and you need a foot that probably is going to have maybe it's going to have some kind of open toe, or it has a big channel underneath it.
Which I like to call a tunnel.
a tunnel, I don't like the word tunnel because it makes me think of tunneling.
Tunneling.
Yeah,
mhm.
so I
and
don't-
and we can we need to talk about tunneling about this too. Go ahead.
Right. So yeah, we'll talk about that. But there are feet, and this is so everybody, this is going to depend on your brand of machine and what they call these freaking feet. Okay.
Well, and there are generic
Yes.
like packages out there that you can buy like multiple feet or
But
whatever.
let's talk
sometimes.
about the
Yeah.
different names. You're going to have something, you could use feet that are called a piping foot,
Mhm.
a cording foot. You may find something called like a jumbo cording foot too. You'll find things like mini piping feet. The cording feet, a braiding foot, an adjustable piping foot. Now, you could also use pin tuck feet, invisible zipper feet
foot
for this.
really works. Yeah.
But just so you know, I actually have not seen a foot called the couching foot except for the free motion couching foot. It doesn't
exactly.
include the word couching.
And you left out one thing.
What'd
when
I
you
say?
said
The piping.
the piping foot. It can also be called a beating foot
Okay,
because
yeah.
it has a hump.
You're right. No,
so
you're right.
so it has a tunnel like behind the needle, and then in front of it, it sort of humps over.
The
Gives room
beads.
for those beads.
So what these?
But sometimes you'll see like all three names on that foot.
Yeah, it'll be like beating, piping, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah foot. Okay, so what these feet with these channels underneath them do that's like really important and like why I want to stress that this
Right.
might be a good investment for you is it will guide, say, that string of beads
Yes.
into the exact same place the entire
Every
yeah,
single time.
under the needle.
Consistency. It's wonderful.
So under the needle, the beads are always in the same place.
Mhm.
So when you set that width, okay, then you should technically be good to go. And so that is an example with the beads where it really protects you. Because if you sew through a plastic bead with your needle, it's gonna break and could come up
The
and hit
bead
you in
will
the
break,
eye.
the needle will break.
Not
You'll,
good for your
you'll
machine.
mar up your throat plate. You'll cry.
Now I'm looking at a cording foot right now that has 7 holes in it.
I call this the Swiss cheese foot.
Well, that's a good, or the
'Cause-
cheese grater foot or something.
Doesn't
yeah.
it look? No, it makes me think of cheese.
Swiss cheese. You're
And
right.
I mean,
You're
it could
totally
be.
right.
It looks like it could grate cheese. It looks like it's Swiss. So it has the slot where your needle goes, and in front of that, it has a series of tiny little holes.
Yeah. How many
Okay.
does yours have? 5.
This is 5. I think there's a 3, a 5, and a 7 that I know of.
Okay. I might
Okay.
not have gotten them all out because there were so
I
many.
don't.
Here's the 3. Okay.
So okay, Mallory, we
Yeah.
have 10 feet in front of us.
Yes.
Not counting the free motion foot.
And I didn't get out all the feet that
And
could be
we
used
probably
for
didn't get
this.
them all out. And there may be more that some brand has that we're not quite sure of or something. But I guess what we really need to I want to get across is this is not a bad investment. You'll be using it for more than one
Yeah.
thing.
Okay. So I want to
Especially
talk
that beating couching
the Oh, you
Yeah.
know what they call it? The pearl and piping foot.
pearl and piping
That's what
foot
they
is
called it.
called. Yeah.
Okay, so these cording feet with all these little holes and everything, they act as guides as well. Okay.
Yes.
Now, what can fit through here is like some pearl cotton
Right,
or some
it's-
thin yarn.
Yeah.
So it's not something
Floss.
right. It's
yeah.
not something where if you sewed over it, you would break your needle and poke your eye out. Okay.
Right.
But what it is doing is if you wanted to put a color scheme through here of like, white, gray, and
Right,
black, or
right.
red, white, and blue, or something like
Right.
that, it's going to keep those 3 rows of floss, of
Right.
cording, of whatever in line, and you're going to get this nice color,
Right.
blend or a
laid
thick
down.
line or whatever. And you could even do, in this case, if you put 4 of these, if you thread 4 of these holes,
4 of the 7.
4 of the
Yes,
7
right.
on the 7.
You have a different look than if you do all
Well,
of them.
okay,
Yeah.
but what I was going to say is if you thread 4 of these through, it almost takes up the whole width of the
Yes,
stitching
yes.
area. And this is where I think it would be great to bring in your discussion about decorative stitches.
Right.
Because we were talking about a zigzag. However, the zigzag needed to cover this width of
Right.
cords and everything. I would almost go for a triple zigzag.
Right.
And you could go ahead.
Right. So you can do, say, a rainbow pattern with
Mhm.
your cording, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you could actually use a decorative stitch. Now it needs to move forward a lot.
Yes.
You
Or
can't have one
forward
that
only.
you can't
really.
have one that goes back and forth, blah
Right.
blah blah. So you need to, again, test.
Yep.
But some sort of decorative stitch. I mean, I've done like little mountains, over like rainbow stripes, which
Right.
is really cute, like on a baby thing or something.
Yeah, so it's like a scallop.
Yeah,
sort of
there's
like a
scallop, or
scallop
you
on
even
there.
have those peaks,
Yeah.
like the things that are peaks.
Mhm.
I mean, let's go on someone's name.
Well,
Yeah,
I'd be
does it-
careful with the names
Yeah.
because sometimes they move backwards.
Well, that's true.
But test it out, see what
Right,
happens.
test it. You can be right. So you can use decorative stitches to couch,
Yes,
but they need to be forward in movement.
and especially on some of the flatter things. I mean,
Right.
stitching over
Ribbon,
ribbon,
Right.
you know.
Now I have done, things like that look like an arrowhead or something like
Mhm.
over a thicker type yarn or something. It just
yeah.
now
see what happens.
right. And the other thing is, I mean, not through these little Swiss cheese holes, but with some of those other ones, you can use like those hairy yarns,
Yeah.
and actually sometimes like while you're sewing, it will, slender them out a little bit.
Yeah, I want
But then when you're finished, you sort of fluff it back up, and then you have like this, hairiness going on.
I want to talk about how I would like if I were to use like taxonomy to describe these feet. There are some feet that allow the couching medium to just have direct access to the needle.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then some of these feet, like the Swiss cheese one, and this is an adjustable braiding foot that I'm holding here, it creates a hole before the needle where the couching medium goes under part of the presser foot
right.
before meeting the needle. So that is where if I were using eyelash yarn or something a little
Right.
more 3D, maybe I would want it a little more smoothed out before it goes toward my needle.
Right.
And it could get like, hung up or something like
Yes.
that. So the piping foot, well, that would cover the medium a little bit before. The pin
Right.
tuck foot would not. The braiding foot does.
Right.
And so just keep that in mind as you test.
The one thing about the pin tuck foot is you could go to the side on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, test. And, this is one of those things when I tell you to keep a library of
Yeah.
samples. So, write that stitch number, after you get something like you're happy with. Write the stitch number down, write your settings
Settings.
down, take a piece of whatever, that yarn or whatever, and, sew it onto a little card or put it in a pocket of however you keep your samples,
Mhm.
right? And a picture of the foot or the name of the foot or, whatever, so that oh, this is how I did this, and you don't have to go through all those trials and tribulations again.
Absolutely. I was gonna say something else about I think sewing on
I do
beads.
remember one time I needed like a decorative cording on something.
Yeah. Something specific, like a
Yes,
certain
and
style.
I wanted a specific color, and I couldn't find the color. And I wanted like the satin covered cord. You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember what it was, but I was like, okay, I'm going to couch that sucker on, and I'm going to use embroidery threads, and I'm going to impart the color I want.
Yeah.
And it really turned out better than like what I thought in the first place.
Okay, and then this is something that I would have done when I was beginning sewing.
Oh, Mallory did some weird stuff.
So
I just let her rip, and she did a good job.
I just want to say, if you have one of those Swiss cheese feet where there's just all these holes on the foot,
Right.
or there's like little floss guides or
Right.
whatever, or it's something you're going to kind of thread the couching medium through your foot first, and then put the foot on the machine.
Yes.
Don't put this
Yes.
7-hole cording foot on your machine and then try and thread pearl cotton through it.
the-
I
the-
would do that.
No,
I'm
no, no.
not making
Yeah,
fun
no,
of you. I'm like,
these little holes are not, I mean, they're like a big-eyed needle.
Yeah.
They're not big.
so
Right.
don't try. I mean, it's
No, no,
different
no.
when
Thread
you're
it
just
first.
yeah,
right.
it's different when you're just like, okay, I'm gonna pop some cording
right.
on this thing and then sew over it or something. But if you're gonna thread something through, thread it beforehand. You have to do that with the free motion foot. It's got like a hole, that you thread through. So I just want to say that that's something I would have done.
So yeah, and so what Mallory, there are all these feet that have room for 7 or 5 or 3 chords or whatever. And so think about that too. You can use the 2 outer ones or only
Yeah,
the center
there
one
you
or the
go.
2 left ones
Mhm.
or whatever, or one color down the middle and then all the rest are a different color. So don't think, oh, I have to put all purple chords through this
Yeah.
7 purple chords or whatever. That's not what you have to do.
Okay, we've got stabilizer and tunneling written down.
Right.
Why don't you get started talking about that?
Well, you don't want a tunnel. So you want your fabric to stay nice and flat under whatever you're applying to it, right? So I'm applying this cord and all of this thread also,
Yeah.
and or decorative stitch or bead or So I'm hanging a bunch of stuff on this fabric,
Yeah.
right? And I'm using these stitches. You need stabilizer.
You might need like a couple stabilizers. And this isn't appropriate for everything either.
Well, no.
You can get too heavy on
Yes,
something.
you can't take like, a very fine rayon and think you're going to put like a thick yarn
Chain
on it
or
and it's going to
something.
look right. Now, maybe if you're doing an art project, but if you
Yes,
want to wear this,
right.
these things, you have to think about the weight and the drape and the whatever
You know
and what's
why?
going on.
I mean, I've had a little epiphany here, and not really
Oh,
I feel
a
like I've
couch
known this before.
epiphany.
A couching epiphany. You say that you've not had to change the tension, on your
Yeah.
machines, and I just feel like you've had such a lot of experience with different fabrics
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like okay, this is an inappropriate time for couching, or
Right.
I need more stabilizer
Well,
under
and I
here.
think that's
Like
what
you just have those instincts before the project gets
the
going.
last thing I ever do is change the tension, everybody. Like, if something's tunneling, stabilizer.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, or a longer stitch length or something. And we see this on our page all the time, right?
Yeah.
When somebody's asking for advice and everybody's like, change the tension. No, no, no.
There's probably
There's
something
probably
else.
something else. It's probably you need stabilizer, or you need more. Like Mallory said, you need more stabilizer.
I mean, it depends on what you're doing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, or you might just need another needle. Honestly.
Because you would do these crazy quilts, okay? They're
Mhm.
machine crazy quilts, and you'd be using weirdo costume
Well,
fabrics
I
and
used
stuff.
yes.
But
Actually, that one is like all costume
yeah,
fabric.
so it's like satins.
So it's satins and it's voils over another piece of satin and
But
brocades and all this stuff.
were
It's not
sewing-
quilting cotton.
yeah, you were sewing them down onto like a lightweight canvas
I
kind of.
was.
Yeah. So then
Mhm.
when ZD goes to apply and couch on beads and soutache and everything like that, she actually has quite a stable base to go on to begin with.
That's right.
So I'm just saying
The quilt is very heavy.
it's a heavy quilt.
You know the weighted blanket idea?
Yeah.
I came up with it a
No, I know.
long time
I
ago.
was actually thinking about that because I was like, man, all these people want these weighted blankets. Like, okay. But then I realized that the throw that I have on my couch,
It's very heavy.
it's that home
so
deck
we
fabric.
make throws.
Well,
yeah.
that's another
That's a
thought.
good
Write
podcast.
that down. Yeah. I think we've talked about
I
it
think
before,
we have too.
but I don't know if we've given in-depth instructions. So now's a great time. I want to talk about starting and finishing.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay. So you have a lot of options with this. Couching can be used to do things like you could trace out a name and follow the name, or you're just doing, weird fun paths to have a good time, or you are recreating some kind of regalia or something like that. You can use it for so many things.
Couching was very common, like in the 40s,
Uh-huh.
on women's like suits.
Yeah,
Up around the neckline.
right.
And soutache was a very common thing for
Mhm.
people. And a lot of times it was curves or swirls or loops or, something like that. So someone probably drew that on first.
And then
and
kind
then
of
went over.
traced
right.
it, drove
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
drove
yeah.
that stuff on. So what you can do is you can start sort of like off of your where
mhm.
your pattern piece is going to be, or
Where,
something
where
like that.
your seam's going to be.
Yeah, or something
Right.
like that. So you could start off, and what we would do is, if possible, kind of stitch through the medium a little bit to
Mhm.
anchor it, or leave a long tail.
Mhm.
Okay, and then if you can, go off your pattern piece a little bit. And
Right.
couching can change the size of a pattern piece or a
Mhm.
pillow. Like say you want a 16 by 16 pillow. Well, first of all, cut yourself a
Oh, I want to couch a pillow
you want to do
now.
a pillow? Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, cut yourself a 19 by 19,
Always make it
pillow, and
bigger.
then always make it bigger.
It's like, well,
Could
in,
be
in
they
this
said for
case, it's
quilting,
like you're
too.
making your own fabric.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So the opposite of this
Mhm.
would be if I did want it around like a neckline,
Yeah.
right? I might want to put my shoulder seams in
Okay.
because I
yeah.
may want to embellish right
Over-
over those
No, very-
shoulder seams.
Very true. But I
Right.
do want to say you can, like, if you need to stop in the middle
Mhm.
of a visible area of your
Right.
pillow, your dress, your
Oh,
whatever.
I've got a great pillow idea. Go on.
Okay.
Keep going. It's just coming to
What
me.
I would do
You just
here
sketch it out right now while we're talking.
is I would make my design, and you're probably using your zigzag, and I would stop and I would anchor my thread by either using your anchoring stitch on your sewing machine or doing a straight stitch and making the length 0 or as
Right.
low as you can get it. Do a few stitches in place and then trim, and then you should be able to trim the threads to the back,
Right.
and you should be able to then take a tapestry needle and pull your couching medium back through your fabric, maybe. Of course, if this is like a string of beads, that's not something that like frays or something like that. But keep that in mind with, kind of plan a little bit how you're going to start and stop. And then I want to talk about the direction of those sequins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
okay,
the
I know-
direction,
I know.
it's a direction of anything, actually.
Well,
Not but sequence
Especially
is the one
it's
that'll
it's
get
a
you
really
every
good
time.
one. Yeah, talk
It's the
about
one
that.
that-
Tell me about
So-
that.
Sequins are sewn on and usually lapped over each other.
Yeah, like if you get a
Correct.
roll of sequins,
I'm-
it's
Right.
you
I
know,
mean,
yeah.
think of like fish scales, I guess.
fish scales. Yes.
So you don't want to be going against the lap, right?
Yeah. You
So-
want to be like it needs to easily go under your
Right.
foot. It needs to not be like the edges of the sequins
Right,
are
or
popping
flip it,
against your foot.
popping up. And there are some trims you really, if you have a trim that's woven in a certain way or something, check that out too, because it may sort of have the same deal. You want to make sure it's going with the flow, that it's sliding under your foot and not working against your foot.
I think I've had to unwind a thing of sequins before.
I have unwound trim before. I can
because
yes.
it was going the quote wrong
That's
way
right. No,
to go
it's
under
true.
a presser foot.
Well, here's the deal.
You know.
And I, when we'll work with sequins, we have a whole big roll. A lot of people go to the store and actually buy like 3 yards.
yeah,
normally.
if you just buy the little 3-yard roll, you're fine because you just wind it onto like something
Yeah,
else and you're
but
good.
we have it like
but
we have a 100-yard roll or something. We
I-
might have to pull it off and decide where to cut it.
I
But yeah.
have sent them through the wrong way before. It
Yes.
didn't last very long. I was like,
Yes.
oh, I see, and
Right.
then changed
Right.
it. But yeah, the sequin thing is the most it is the most evident. Like you can definitely see how that raw edge of the sequin versus the edge
Right.
that's covered
The
by the other
flipped up
sequin.
edge, right.
Yeah, the flipped up edge can get in your way. Would you write
Well,
down?
I wanted to talk about shrinkage or not,
Yeah.
or bleeding. So
Okay.
you want to pre-wash these things.
Okay.
Okay. Have I done it every time? No. Have I gotten in trouble? Yes. That's
Yeah.
why I can tell you this.
Have I been screwed over?
Why
Yes.
do I know this?
Mhm,
Why do I
right.
know this? It wasn't that person sitting on the couch that told me this. It was the person that did it wrong. That
Right.
was me. So especially certain things like reds so if I'm putting a red trim
Yeah.
on white fabric, I need to. Now you don't have to launder it if you don't want to put it through the laundry. What I would probably do is soak this in warm water
Mhm.
with vinegar.
Yeah.
Okay, I might wash it with Synthropol, which catches the free dye. Right.
Right.
Red is so unstable. Okay, or anything that you might think has red in it, like purple.
Yeah.
Purple can be unstable too. So any dye can be unstable. I want to wash that out and I will literally like run it under the faucet and rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse. And then I might put it in the dryer.
Right.
Okay, put it in a like a lingerie bag and throw it in your dryer. Because if you're going to wash and dry that garment, you don't want the separate, degrees of shrinkage.
Yes.
Talk
You
about
wanna,
tunneling. You can have some
yeah,
really ugly show
you
up.
want to pre-shrink
And
your
you
stuff.
may have even done this on like ready to wear, and you're like, all I did was launder this, and now this is all scrunched up over here. And, it's because they didn't do that.
Yeah, it's because they're
They don't have to
materials
do
were
that
not.
for
No,
you. They just have to
don't.
make it pretty to hang in the store and
They
you'll
just
buy
have to
it.
make it look good on the hanger.
That's
Yep.
right. That's all they have to do. So think about your pre-washing.
Yes, absolutely. So couching is a great way though for like if you don't have an embroidery machine
Mhm.
to do things. Also, I would sometimes have people come to me and want an embroidery machine to do
One
something,
thing.
something
Yeah.
like really big
Oh, yes.
that really in a home sewing environment needed to be done by couching on like some cord, like certain
Like
types
have
of
someone come in and say they want to make
textiles.
a banner for their child's marching band. And
Yeah.
they're going to use their embroidery machine. Good luck.
Right.
Because the letters need to be like, 2 feet high, right?
Right.
So then we go to applique,
Couching,
couching.
etc.
And one thing that is really nice to do is if you have an applique letter, couching around it is really nice.
No,
You
couching
can
is
use that
so
as
fun.
an outline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let's just cover that free motion couching foot real quick before
Will
we.
you do that?
I will. Okay, so this used to be exclusive to another brand. And then Baby Lot got it. They
That's
got a free
right.
motion couching foot. And so what it looks like is if you've ever seen an Echo quilting free motion foot, it looks
So it
like
looks like a little disc.
Who's doing the free
a-
motion couching? No. Yes, it
A
looks like
concave disc.
it looks like a saucer, a
Right.
clear saucer, clear plastic saucer. And
A
why
big contact lens.
Yeah, why the Echo quilting is good for that is because it has 1/4 inch lines on it, and so you can go from any angle, and you've got a circle with these, 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch, diameters, so that you could technically do Echo quilting with it. But then this free motion couching foot has a little hole and thread guide where you can thread yarn or something through. It does have to be a bit thick because when you go backwards,
It has to be exactly the right gauge.
you need to
Yes.
test it. Okay. It's not like an equal opportunity coucher.
And again, kind of soft.
Right.
It can't be anything that won't bend or
Now-
curl easily.
You can check on your free motion couching foot, but
Don't you want a couch really bad
Yeah,
now?
I do. Some of them do have where you can have a slight zigzag because they have a bit of an
Yes,
opening.
yes.
However, if you go sideways, your zigzag is a straight stitch.
Right.
Okay, in free motion land, so it doesn't matter.
So what Mallory's telling you is this, threads like down through the saucer
right.
comes to the hole or the slot where the needle comes through, and it's absolutely stabbing, that cording supposedly,
Right.
ideally,
In the
that's
center.
ideally, that's a good word for this, right down the center of that cording.
Okay, and then one more thing we haven't talked about that will help you in this is whatever your couching medium is, you need to put it somewhere or have it, somewhere where it can flow freely.
So you need to figure out how you're going to feed this.
Yeah. So is it going to be in a coffee cup? It could even be like down on the floor.
I usually have it
or
a lot of times in my lap.
in your lap.
So I'll have like a saucer or a bowl
What
in my
if
lap.
you have 7 things
Yep.
of pearl cotton,
Yep.
because you've threaded them through your Swiss cheese foot? Okay, then you need to, have these things somewhere where they can flow freely, where they're not going to break, because that would be
Right.
really sad as you go a couching.
And generally it's something like a little bowl or a little container because you don't want it rolling away or traveling away from you while you're trying to work on your machine.
Now, sometimes a thread lift can be helpful for this, especially with the free motion
Mhm.
couching foot because of the way that the thread guide
Right.
works. But a thread lift could be helpful. Now, this couching medium goes sort of more, in front of your machine than how you normally use a thread lift. So that's important to keep in mind. But you're going to have some kind of bowls or mugs or something.
Cups.
Or maybe you just have something in your lap, but make sure you've got enough sequins rolled off that.
And that is
thing,
one thing when you're doing it is you have to be very prudent about, do you have enough material that's rolling off
Well,
in
you
a
need to-
freeway?
I would even call
Yeah.
it vigilant.
Vigilant
okay, so
is
there's
good word.
more.
Better word,
Yeah,
better
there's
word.
more moving parts now.
Yes.
So we're always telling you,
right.
okay, make sure there's nothing in the way of your thread
Right.
on your machine. Make sure there's nothing bogging down
Right.
your project. And
Right.
so if you've got your big old crazy quilt, right, Mom?
Right.
And then you've got your couching stuff.
right.
And then you've got other things that you've couched over.
Right.
You know, there's a lot going on. So there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of couching pieces.
I have made my own guide out of a section of a straw before too.
Oh my.
Like set it up on my machine, cut the straw through it, and put it through that, and tape that onto my machine
Whoa.
so that it's a new guide.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
it's a
love
new
it.
guide. And you
know,
can
and
put
they
it
sell-
like anywhere you need
Okay,
it. You
and
can
they-
you can have more than one of those.
They sell those metal straws now too.
Oh yeah.
So it's like really easy to get a more
Well, but
like
I usually
stable
I,
tube,
I
and you
was
want it
gonna
to be
say,
shorter.
I usually cut it in as about 2 inches long.
Yeah,
or
but
something.
I'm picturing like
like that long metal
painter's
straw
taping,
right there.
like
yeah,
a metal straw.
Yeah,
It might be because then it would be
Yeah.
commensurate with the
Yeah.
thread lift.
I've used other
Mm.
tubing.
Oh, and I put it upside down so that the little angles down there. Oh man,
I-
I'm taping a metal straw to our sewing machine, guys.
I mean, I've also used other types of tubing, and I don't even know where I got it. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
right.
like
Just anything a thread would fit
you
through.
know, the tubing that's in your pump jar.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yep.
skinnier than a straw,
Mhm.
and that's nice for some
Like
things
in
too.
a hand
yeah.
soap jar.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's a good idea. All right. Well, I think that kind of I think we did all right.
Maybe.
Full
I
dis-
hope you get. All I know is Mallory and I just sold ourselves on couch.
Yeah, we're just really
we're like
excited.
ready to go here.
Go couch.
I have a new camper and I need some throw
Oh, you
pillows,
know-
and I'm just thinking about how I can pick the colors I want and the
You know what we
textures I
didn't-
want.
I just want to.
What'd you do?
You know what we didn't kind of talk about? I just want to say, you can like twist and braid and combine.
I
just
thought we talked
all-
about that.
I think we did it. Heads up. This
Okay.
is the second recording
Yeah,
of
we
this
got-
podcast. We kind of messed it up the first time.
We actually, that's rare. I bet that's about the third or fourth time we've
happens
started
sometimes.
over. We had to start over because Mallory's mind was going in one direction and mine was not
And
going in the
yes,
same.
Yes. So we.
So I was obviously I was going in the wrong direction.
And couching is so. It can go in so many directions.
That's right.
Yeah.
It can meander.
So you could
It
have
can,
like two cords going, and you could twist
Right.
them, you could braid them, you could do
Right.
it ahead of time,
Right.
But you can. I just want.
So you
I just
can-
want people to know that.
But yes, you can
Yeah.
twist cording as you're going.
Right.
You can twist a pearl cotton around a piece of yarn as you go along.
You
There's
can
all kinds of
also-
stuff.
You can also like leaving aside all of those feet with channels under them where they are
Right.
helping you out in order to keep the thread in place. You can like loop your thread,
Right.
okay,
Yes.
and stitch over it and kind
Yes.
of make like a fringe that's on there. I don't
Right.
even know if that's couching. Maybe that's blurring the
No,
It's
I've done
blurring the
that. I've like
lines.
stopped and gathered up
yeah,
bunches
gathered
of thread.
it up or
Even there's a
something.
little wad of thread
Right.
there's a picture. You can take a picture of my quilt. It's on there.
I'm gonna
I
take
think
some
that's it.
pictures.
I am so excited. I just forgot.
I got to get out of here to give ZD some room.
I just forgot how
couching.
much fun I used to have, like driving
Yep.
that thread right down, the highway on my whatever.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for listening. We hope this inspires you to get a little couching done. We want to see your experiments over in the Self-Sewn Wardrobe group. ZD, take it away.
So long and so happy.
Thanks for listening to Sewing Out Loud. For even more expert sewing advice, visit sewhere.com.